Hey everyone, and welcome back to another deep dive. Today we'll be focusing on something particularly relevant for all you UPSC aspirants out there, getting ready for those tough exams.
Oh, yeah, this is a big one.
You know it. We're talking about India's demographics and how they're poised to totally reshape the nation's future.
Huge implications indeed.
We're talking about the demographic dividend,
Hmm.
that time when a country has more working-age people than dependents.
It's all about a powerful, productive workforce driving economic growth.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is, India is right in the thick of this demographic dividend period right now.
Yeah, but there's a catch.
Oh.
A recent McKinsey report featured in Business Standard suggests this window of opportunity might be closing a bit faster than we thought.
How so?
Well, the report highlights this pretty startling statistic.
They lay it on me.
India has something like 33 years before its population starts looking a lot like a developed aged nation.
Whoa, that's not that far off. So is this rapid shift a recipe for success, or are we looking at a potential crisis?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is, and that's what we're going to deep dive into today.
All right, let's unpack this.
Really grasp what's happening. We need to get a handle on this thing called demographic transition.
Right. It's this model that explains how birth and death rates change as a country develops.
And the Business Standard article we're looking at breaks it down into 4 stages.
And where does India fit into all of this?
Right now, India is smack dab in stage 3,
Meaning?
meaning birth rates are falling, but the population's still on the rise.
Yeah, that's a critical concept for those UPSC exams, especially for the mains where demographic trends are a hot topic.
Absolutely. This stuff is gold for anyone looking to ace those exams.
For sure.
But hold on. Even with the population growing, the makeup of that population is changing, right?
Absolutely.
Fewer young people and a growing number of senior citizens.
Yeah. That's got to have major implications for the economy and for social structures.
No doubt about it.
This is where we bump into this concept of the support ratio.
It's 4 ratio.
Yeah, another key term for those UPSC prelims.
Okay, break it down for me.
It's basically the ratio of working age folks to every senior citizen.
Gotcha.
And the McKinsey report is saying that India's support ratio is dropping, and that's got some serious economic and social consequences.
Like what?
Well, for starters,
Yeah.
the report projects that by 2050, India's support ratio could look a lot like Japan's.
Yeah.
And Japan is facing some real economic hurdles because of its aging population.
Yikes. That's a sobering thought. It's like a sneak peek into a potential future, and it's not exactly sunshine and rainbows. So what does this falling support ratio mean for India's economic prospects?
Well, one of the biggest red flags is the potential for slower economic growth. With a shrinking workforce keeping up India's current growth trajectory could get really tricky. The McKinsey report is basically saying that India needs to switch gears and make some policy adjustments to handle this shifting landscape.
What kind of policy changes are we talking about here? What can India actually do to counter this potential slowdown?
Well, the report suggests a few different strategies. And these are especially relevant for the UPSC mains exam, where you might get asked to analyze different policy options. One key area is boosting worker productivity.
Right, and I remember reading in the Business Standard article that the McKinsey report links this productivity gap to things like education, technology, and infrastructure.
Spot on. Think about it. A well-educated workforce, equipped with cutting-edge technology, and supported by solid infrastructure. That's the recipe for increased productivity right there.
So boosting worker productivity is a big one, and it kind of ties into all these other policy areas like education and infrastructure development. It's all connected, isn't it?
It totally is. It's not just about individual policies. It's about this holistic view of development. And that actually brings us to another big recommendation from the McKinsey report.
Let's hear it.
Increasing women's workforce participation.
Yeah, that comes up a lot in UPSC discussions. India's female labor force participation rate is way lower than a lot of other countries. Unlocking that potential could be huge for economic growth.
Exactly. But there are some hurdles we got to clear first.
Like what?
Think about things like social norms, access to good education and childcare and safety concerns. It's a complicated stuff that policymakers really need to grapple with. And for you UPSC aspirants out there, understanding those barriers and what we can do about them is crucial. You could get grilled on this stuff in the mains exam.
So it's like a real-world case study for those getting ready for the civil services. Okay, so we've got boosting productivity and getting more women into the workforce. What other strategies does the report suggest for navigating this demographic shift?
The report also hammers home the importance of getting ready for the challenges of an aging population. That means shoring up public finances and those social safety nets to support a larger elderly population. Imagine the strain on healthcare systems and pension schemes if we don't plan ahead.
Right, so it's not just about softening the economic blow. It's about making sure senior citizens are taken care of. What specific steps can India take to build a stronger social safety net for its aging population?
Well, there are a bunch of policy options to consider. One is overhauling pension systems to make sure they're sustainable in the long run. Another is getting creative with healthcare financing to keep those costs in check. Then there's the whole issue of expanding elder care facilities and giving families more support when they're taking care of elderly relatives. This is all pretty complex stuff that needs some serious thought.
And again, these are the kinds of topics that pop up all the time in UPSC exams. It's wild how this deep dive is linking these demographic trends to real-world policy challenges. It's almost like we're getting a preview of the kinds of things future civil servants will be wrestling with.
You got it. And it really drives home how interconnected all this stuff is. It's not just about demographics. It's about social justice, economic planning, healthcare policy. All these different areas overlap and influence each other. And for someone who wants to work in the Indian civil services, understanding this intricate web is super important.
It's like seeing the whole picture, recognizing how demographic shifts can ripple out and affect all these different sectors. It's not just about numbers, it's about people's lives and the future of the country.
Exactly. And that takes us to a really critical point. The McKinsey report, while highlighting the challenges, also makes it clear that India has a choice to make. This demographic transition can either be a roadblock or it can be a springboard to a brighter future.
It's almost like we're at this fork in the road with two paths leading in opposite directions. One path leads to being caught off guard and missing out on opportunities, while the other leads to a more prosperous and inclusive India.
Exactly. And the path we take hinges on the decisions we make today. It's about being proactive with policymaking, making strategic investments, and committing to building a future where everyone benefits from India's demographic dividend.
So it's not all doom and gloom. There's this sense of optimism here, a belief that India can handle these challenges and come out stronger on the other side. But it takes planning, thinking ahead, and being willing to adapt.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about seeing this demographic shift not as some kind of burden, but as a chance to really reshape India's destiny. And that's something that should resonate with every UPSC aspirant, with everyone who dreams of making India a better place.
It's more than just passing an exam, isn't it? For all you UPSC hopefuls out there, it's about understanding these forces that are going to shape India in the years to come.
Oh, absolutely. This demographic shift is a defining moment for India. And those who get it, who really understand it, those are the folks who will be leading the way and navigating all the complexities that come with it.
Okay, so let's bring it all together. What's the big takeaway for our listeners, especially for those prepping for the UPSC exams?
The big takeaway is this: India's demographic transition is a turning point. It's this crossroads where proactive policymaking and smart investments can really make or break the nation's future.
So for those aspiring civil servants listening in, imagine this. You're advising the government on how to handle this demographic shift. What are your top priorities?
Now, that's the question every UPSC aspirant should be wrestling with. It really makes you think critically and apply everything you've learned from these reports and articles. We've talked about boosting worker productivity, getting more women into the workforce, prepping for an aging population. It's all connected.
It's like having this toolbox full of potential solutions.
Yeah.
And the trick is figuring out which tools to use and how to use them the right way.
And remember, there's no magic bullet, no one-size-fits-all answer. It's about customizing those solutions to India's specific situation, taking into account the social, economic, and political realities on the ground.
So it's not just about memorizing facts and figures for the exam.
Yeah.
It's about really grasping these issues and being able to analyze them critically.
Exactly. And that's what the UPSC is all about. It's not just testing what you know. It's about seeing if you can think for yourself, solve problems, and make smart decisions.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive into India's demographic landscape and what it all means for the nation's future.
And I hope it's given our listeners, especially those UPSC folks, a better understanding of the challenges and opportunities that are out there.
Knowledge is power, right? And understanding these demographic trends is so important for anyone who cares about shaping India's future. Whether you're a future policymaker or just a concerned citizen, staying informed is the first step to making a difference.
If you enjoyed this deep dive into India's demographic crossroads, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button for more deep dives on all sorts of important topics, especially those that'll help you ace those UPSC exams.
Until next time, keep those brains working and keep on diving deep.